Welcome to Collective Church. It's 5 p.m. Hey, Freddie, would you go grab my iPad off that chair over there? I'm going to wing it. We won't back down tonight from being entirely ourselves. Good. I'm Ben. I'll be your host for the service tonight here in beautiful downtown DeLand. And welcome to our living room from anywhere in the world at wearecollectivechurch.com. We're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. You can connect and keep up on what's going on with Collective by checking out wearecollectivechurch.com. Stand by. This iPad's totally frozen. That's super cool. I know, and then I froze. Here with us tonight to help host Kenny. Hey, Kenny, how's it going? If you're online, shout out to Kenny. We've also got our artist in residence back from, was it cold up there?
It was colder than it is here, yeah.
Yeah, Atlanta. Freddie's back from Atlanta. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me back.
Thank you for coming back. Brandon, how's it going, Brandon? Good, fantastic. Here, we're close. We're close here. Yeah, fantastic. All right, so for those of us, I'm trying to look around. Hey, June, what's up? How can I help you? No reason, just saying hi. Hey, June. It looks like it's, the second day of the year. We've got a nice little crowd, and even with this intimate crowd, we have people in the room who have never been here with us. And so if it's your first time with us, if it's your first time in anything like a church in a while, thank you. We know that that's an act of courage just to show up. I had this experience with my dad. I don't know if you guys have holiday stuff that happens over the holidays. Some good. I know that people have drama and tough stuff with family as well. I had this moment with my dad where we were at their 55-plus community, and he was telling me that he's got like 12 books on his nightstand. And he went to do his, he works out in the morning, and he goes swimming, and he swims laps. And then he stops by the library at their little clubhouse. And he said, I saw like 3 or 4 books, and I read the jackets, and I grabbed them, and I was going to take them to the house, and then I realized I've already got 12 books on my nightstand. And he said it hit me for the first time. He's 72, I think 73. He turned 73 on the 20th of January. He said, I realized for the first time that I'm not going to read all the books that I want to read. Whew. Yeah. And part of what we're going to say tonight is that when we look at our lives, we've got to come to terms with the fact that we don't have time for all the different stories that we might want to live. And part of what we're going to say tonight, part of dividing an audience, is to own the stories that we are choosing to live. We can't read them all. We can't live them all. We've got to choose. And what we're going to say tonight is that not everyone is going to choose to live the same story that we're going to live, and that's okay. That's okay. What we want to know is who's going to live this story with us. And the truth is, at the end of the day, choosing is what we have. Choosing what to do at the end of a bunch of time, that's called a life. It's just the summary of all the choices that we've made. Do this thing and not all the other things. That is to say, this is the story that I choose to live. And I'm really glad to be living it with you all tonight. So let's begin by bearing witness to the courage that it takes to gather. We honor that, as always, with belonging. And so whether it's your first time here or you've been out here for a long time, we want everyone to know that we belong, that what we bring to one another is valuable, and that while we're together, everyone's equal. Your presence makes us who we are. Not here to be religiously entertained, but we say every week to do good work. And the good work of spiritual formation is simply this: to make good lives as good people. That's tough to argue with, right? Who's going to show up and go, I don't want that. I don't want to live a good life as a good person. Yeah. So thanks again to Kenny and Freddie and Brandon and Mary and everybody that helps put this together. We're going to need a couple of you to be readers tonight, kind of a choose your own adventure liturgy. We all are Collective Church. And I think June was going to read for us. Did she leave the room? No. June, do you want to read? She's uncomfortable in front of an audience. Where's your microphone? It's right on the couch where you left it. Don't tell a story. Read it.
Okay.
You want to introduce yourself?
What?
You want to say, hi, I'm June?
Everyone knows I'm June.
That's not true. There are people here who have never been here before.
Okay, I'm June. Hello. Yes.
Thank you.
Hi. Okay. Okay. We value highly the metaphor of journey, where different people from different places and backgrounds representing an generational community, and we've traveled different paths. So we agree not to make assumptions about the person across from us, next to us, or conversations with us. We challenge ourselves to be sensitive, knowing this community includes a diverse group of people, from lifelong followers of Jesus to people who are just now open to the idea that God might exist. We strive to avoid offense, ask good questions, articulate and explain our responses. We don't assume fluency in Bible, spiritually, or church language, because we believe the message of Jesus is not for Christianity, but for humanity. So we do everything in the spirit of love and grace.
Thank you, June. You can turn that button off. I appreciate it. Thank you. This is so surreal. I'm looking at Annabelle, and I'm remembering sitting around the McCullough's table and like reading the different versions of this community statement coming together. None of us had kids. And this afternoon, I asked June if she wanted to read it, just kind of like not thinking about it. And I heard her read the community statement in entirety for the first time in my life, and it was crazy. So if you guys have a good time, that's awesome, but I've already got church, so you're welcome to join me. Kenny, who's with us online?
We've got a bunch of folks watching online. We've
Fantastic.
got hellos from Jim and Tosh Watts.
Awesome.
The Clendenons are watching from Oregon. We've got Dottie.
Awesome.
Who says she's doing better than she has any right to be.
That's fantastic, aren't we all?
Yes.
Fantastic, cool. Well, thank you guys for tuning in online. Welcome. So that's who's online. We're going to talk to the people who are in the room. We say it's tough to build a movement if you don't know who's in it. So as we talk to each other, these are the questions we want to wrestle with tonight. We want you to share about a time that you chose to walk away from something because it just wasn't right for you. Share about a time that you chose to walk away from something because it just wasn't right for you. And if you want to process that on your own, you don't need to be in a conversation, but the idea is that if we can feel safe about having a conversation, that we would talk to each other. So let's take about 3 or 4 minutes, share about a time you walked away from something because it was not right for you. Go. I was invited to be the preaching pastor at a church in Merritt Island when I was still working at First Baptist, and it was like, like the dream job. Like all I would have to do basically was preach. They had an older senior pastor that wanted to like slow down, and it was like more conservative than I knew, but he kept trying to convince me that like it was okay and the church would change. And it was right as the economy was crashing in 2008, and so we weren't able to move just because we couldn't sell a house and couldn't buy one. But it was like during that time that the dude was like, well, you either have faith or you don't. You either just got to move. And I was like, I can't afford 2 mortgages. And he was like, well, you either need to trust God or, and I was like, well, that's not the church for me anyway.
That might be God telling you
Right.
now's not the time.
Yeah, that's a bank account balance.
Like, you know, that
All right, who's got something they want to shout out to us? Something you walked away from? I'll go first, and we'll see if anybody wants to rally around it. How many of you have either left or not taken a job because it was not right? Yeah, this is like most of the people. All right, what else do we have? That was mine, so I'm all out now. Steve. Oh, churches. God, yeah. I mean, not everyone, but a handful of people in the room. Yeah. Okay, churches. Yep. Yeah. Ooh, this is a tough one. Yeah, Marianne. People. Yeah, I was going to say relationships, friendships. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's a good, why, well, let's dig into that a little bit. Why do you think it's a good feeling? What feels good about it?
Because every time I was with this person, I left feeling bad about myself, negative, and realized they weren't putting anything positive into my life. It was making them feel better to make me feel bad.
Ooh, yeah.
So, and it was just very enlightening.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, okay. So there are separations and divisions in our lives that leave us feeling more like ourselves, that leave us feeling more free, more safe. Okay, good. Anybody else? Yeah, Joe. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Yep, I've done that too. I guess I could have thought of that one. Yeah. Ooh, yeah, family during, yeah. How many of us counted to 10 and left the room? Don't say my name on the live stream. Yeah, no, I won't. No, everyone has a voice just like yours. All right, anybody else walked away? So let me ask this. How many of you guys have walked away from something even, and I think Joe kind of nailed it, even though you couldn't necessarily justify it, explain it, you couldn't show somebody the math, but you knew. You had to walk away just because it was an intuition. You knew it wasn't right for you. How many of you guys would be in that camp? Cool. All right. If anyone ever tells you you're not spiritual, just tell them they're wrong. That's spirituality. All right. You want to sing it?
Let's do it. Different paths, beautiful people with messy pasts, so have no fear, no judgment here. Whether you believe in Jesus or don't believe in anything, something you can teach us, you belong. No right, no wrong. Leading into grace. Help us make a place with an open table where no one's turned away. We'll love without why. No one has to why. Finding God in people, sharing hearts as He is full of mystery. The solidarity helps us to find some peace in the great unknown. You don't have to be alone. Leaning into grace. Help us make a place with an open table. No one's turned away. We'll love without why. No one has to hide. Finding God in people, sharing hearts as equals. You are held in light. Good news is on your side. Oh,
All right, you guys sound good. We've said it, we've sung it, we've talked to the again. So if you are looking at the new year and you want to make a plan to practice, Kenny, how would we do that this week, for example?
Well, it all starts with the email. You can subscribe and select the rundown as well as your preferences, and then the weekly rundown becomes your custom dashboard for us practicing together. This week, we are back in the swing of things, and this month also. So we've got Collective Yoga is back tomorrow. We've got Collective Cares, which has last week did a planning meeting, so they've planned out a bunch of stuff for the coming season. Ben and I will be having a conversation soon with Ginny, Beth, and Ella regarding Collective Kids so that we have kids programming back on the calendar. And also at the end of the month, I'm pretty sure Jim is hosting Fireside Moonrise. Is that right?
Correct, yeah, Jim and Lynn. I'm not wearing this, am I? Sorry. Left my mic on the drum kit.
So we have a lot of stuff coming up. If you're interested in anything, feel free to ask about it later. One of our core practices is showing up and then giving and serving as a practice. And we've been asking you to tell us how you're willing to serve, and you did. We've got it, we've assigned, we've tabulated, and we've communicated. So
Yes.
hopefully you guys, if you were asked to volunteer, that happened. The email went out. If you haven't had a chance to say, reach out, email me.
Let us know. Tell
Let us
Kenny you want
know.
to serve.
Yeah, I have a business card somewhere.
So there will be an email. Brandon, can you take some of the high out of that? It's real ringy. There will be an email that goes out this week. So if you signed up for that, if you did the survey that told us how you wanted to serve, there will be an email that will go out this week. It'll have the schedule for January. And there will be more details about that. But if you signed up, you've been scheduled. Oh, look at that. It's time. All right, let's, so everybody do me a favor, if you're able, this is gonna feel very churchy. If you're able, stand where you are and just shake it out. Because we're gonna sit in silence, and the temptation when we sit in silence is to get up and go to the bathroom and get a coffee and wiggle a little bit and do your toes and crack your shoulders, and let's try and shake it out. And the reason is we want to be respectful of the silence of other people around us, right? Because it's not just the silence we have in our bubble. The noise we make reaches other people. And so we're going to try and sit. And again, it's not just the silence that we can hear with our ears, but we want to reach some inner silence. So as you sit down, try and keep both feet on the floor. If you're in a high top, that's okay. You just want to kind of get comfortable. Hey, Huckman, we're going to sit in silence. You and Sam are welcome to practice with us, but there's not going to be any talking for the next 3 minutes, okay? You guys ready? Do you guys want to get in a comfier chair like a beanbag or something? My son is looking at me going like this. No. We're going to sound the singing bowl, and we're going to ask you to join us in sitting for just a few minutes. in what we call gently returning to our attention. This is the true self, this is God. Whether that feels like center or emptiness or anywhere in between, the invitation is to sink into that. To breathe and to listen, as if our senses are searching for something. Your mind will wander. It may be the sound of a dog, maybe the sound of the kids playing in back, Huck or Sam playing with the creamer on the bar. All of these noises, all these heartbeats, it all belongs. The invitation is to find peace within yourself. So each time your mind wanders, no judgment, just notice, and gently, gently back to your breath. Feel free to use the drone footage as best helps to survey your inner landscape. May we allow the silence to help us to contemplate what we want the ceremony May the silence allow us to contemplate what we want the ceremony to accomplish for us. Humility, spiritual rebirth, strength for what lies ahead, relax. It's all right. All right, as you open your eyes and return to this space and this time, do it gently. I was going to sing a song that we did on Christmas Eve, but I changed my mind, as happens. And instead, I'm going to ask if anybody would like to begin the year by asking for some love, some prayer, some light. This afternoon, Lewis Long reached out and said he and Karen were hoping to be here, but she's having some side effects from medications, so they can't. So I think they're tuned in online this evening. But it reminded me that even though it's a new year, we've all got some pre-existing conditions from 2021, so and from before. So if there are some things that you would like for us to hold in the light and to pray for you about, we would like to do that. Dan. Helena's mom is going through her cancer therapy right now, and she needs your prayers. Yep. A great lady and a great mom and a great person. Yeah. Yeah, she is. So Beth Ann, who's Helena's mom, Helena, who's usually here, she's going through cancer. We were able to do something to help them this last week, and they were very appreciative of that. Mary? Yes, we need a positive response for Brandon's job application. Yeah? Anybody else? All right. I love this. Well, as always, our belief is that the body of Christ has already heard the prayers of the people, and so we carry them forward with us this week. And I want to ask you to carry them actively, meaning if you know some of the people that have asked, you can check in on them. Hey, Huckman, let's leave him for now, just so everyone's not distracted, okay? Thanks. All right, who wants to read from Micah 7? This is fun stuff. Really good. Old Testament. Yes, Heather, come on. Yes, Heather, Micah 7. No, right? This is such a fun one. Huck, head back there, please, now.
I can't do as well as June did.
No, well, who could? Such a performer. Green means go, maybe.
There we go.
Yeah.
Micah,
Yes.
the prophet. What misery is mine! I am like one who gathers summer fruit at the gleaning of the vineyard. There is no cluster of grapes to eat, none of the early figs that I crave. The faithful have been swept from the land, not one upright person remains. Everyone lies in wait to shed blood. They hunt each other with their nets. Both hands are skilled in doing evil. The ruler demands gifts. The judge accepts bribes. The powerful dictate what they desire. They all conspire together. The best of them is like a briar, the most upright, worse than a thorn hedge. The day God visits you has come, the day your watchmen sound the alarm. Now is the time of your confusion. Do not trust a neighbor. Put no confidence in a friend. Even with the woman who lies in your embrace, guard the words of your lips. For a son dishonors his father. A daughter rises up against her mother. A daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the members of his own household.
And a happy new year. One commentator says, the literary form of this chapter is a lament in which Micah weeps over the sad state of affairs into which his nation has fallen by its sin. Micah weeps over the sad state of affairs into which his nation has fallen by its sin. God, the Bible is outdated and irrelevant, isn't it? So I want us to start there. What does that mean for you now on the leading edge of 2022? What makes you weep? What is the state of affairs? And what is the nation's sin? So just light conversation to get us started. I'm going to give you 7 minutes on that one, and then we're going to come back and tie it all together. Does that sound good? You guys are doing the heavy lifting tonight. Sorry, I'm going to preach a little bit, but the conversation's where it's at. So get going. No me monsters, everybody share. Find a group to talk with. You don't have to if you don't want to. Go. All right. What's the situation? What makes us weep? I don't know, I'm smiling so big. Just another 7, though. Yeah, what makes us weep? Downton Abbey, for sure. It's just remarkable acting. Not everyone has seen this, right?
Not everyone has seen this, but that this is also a fictional show, right?
Sure.
It's not based in reality. But there's something very interesting to
Let's listen, guys.
the fact that this dude who has inherited a bunch of wealth and land feels compelled to make sure that the people that live around him, the farmers that rent the land from him, have
Guys, the only way this works is if we're not all talking at the same time.
like he has the ability, like he cares very deeply about his tenants, and he wants to make sure that they have a livelihood, and he takes that like obviously in connection with his tenants, there's communication, there's this back and forth, so that he's using his means to ensure that all those around him can continue to do well and have dignity. Like he's not just giving his money away, right? Which that's not a bad thing either.
Yeah.
But like he's making sure that those around him have dignity. And so what I was saying that kind of the first and the last question to me are the same.
Sure.
Because I feel like our nation's sin is greed largely.
Yeah.
And into myself, like I'm not just talking about like what's his name, Baldy.
Yeah, them. Yeah, yeah.
Or like any of them.
Sure.
But like to myself, like what can I do to make sure that the people in my community can have a livelihood and also with dignity, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not just giving them money.
Yes. All right, let me try, for those of you, and I know we have microphones, we didn't hand them out. That's okay, you'll have to take my word for it. Let me summarize what Annabelle said. So maybe in all 3 questions, there is a conflictual relationship between wealth and the common good. And that there's also tremendous opportunity for people of wealth to reorient themselves toward the common good, rather than from a place of greed. Absolutely. Underneath all of that falls racism, xenophobia, all that stuff to protect power and wealth. And all of the slavery, racism, that history of the nation, I think in a lot of ways is tied to capitalism and that drive to have, to possess more and more. Who else? Any more? Yeah, Dave.
On behalf of the children back here, when Huck loses his Xbox remote, makes them weep.
Okay, so that, and back to capitalism. When we lose things, it makes us sad.
We talked about. You giving me a mic? This is dangerous.
I wondered what you were doing. I was like, God, Freddie's being weird, just standing over here. What's he doing? Thank you.
He's representing Davidson University,
Yes.
the sponsor for tonight's event.
Go
Go
for it.
college, sorry. They talked about when some people are mean instead of nice.
Yeah,
And Sam talked about when we don't treat the earth very well and we cut down too many trees and we litter.
yeah, all of those couldn't be more poignant.
From
Thanks,
the
Sam.
from the 6 and 7-year-old.
Yeah, from the mouths of babes. Jinx, you owe me a Bible reference. That's the only one I know, sorry. Anybody else? Yeah, okay, awesome. What's up from the online community?
From multiple people. Dottie says that she weeps over the ignorance, the digging in of heels against science, against social aid, against truth and facts. Our sin is that we have fallen asleep and let the money changers steal the goodness out of the earth and its people. Jim says, I am worried about the fate of American democracy. I am pessimistic. Our nation's sin is the ruthless, unbridled grasp for power at any cost. There is so little focus on community and the public good, tribal conflict with few efforts toward unity and understanding. Bill Brennan says, he says, I weep over the unconsciousness and groupthink of our culture and the church writ large.
Man. if you ever wonder why we put forth the effort to connect, what is that? The online community, it's because we get gold like that. So thank you guys very much online for contributing. That's huge. Okay, so yeah, these answers, while maybe they're different facets of the same diamond, they feel like they're all sort of that maybe they're all symptoms of something, and we're all sort of trying to name it. This is from Matthew 10. This is Jesus, though it's not going to feel like him at first. Do not suppose that I've come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I've come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. That should sound familiar. He's quoting Micah, what we just heard. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. And now may the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts grant us not only the light of wisdom to understand these words, but the fire of conviction to put them into practice. Whatever you believe about Jesus or God or Christianity, just at the surface level here, it feels like Jesus is saying, who's with me? Right? This is his rah-rah speech. Or even more directly, maybe he's saying, choose me, choose this path, choose this way, choose the sacrifice, choose to lose your life, the one you had, in order to find a life we're not really sure what that life is going to look like. And this is Jesus saying it's decision time, and not decision time in the classic Baptist, every head bowed and every eye closed, and raise your hand if you've prayed the sinner's prayer and you want to get born again. Come get slain in the Spirit. We'll head out and baptize you in the St. John's. And that sounds fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's cool. The thing is, I don't think what Jesus is asking for is nearly that easy. I don't think he's asking you to believe some things and get baptized. I think he means it's decision time in the sense like your family isn't going to like this much. Your friend group, they may not get this one. Mama said there'd be days like this. Sorry, Mama, they're here. You know, Dad is disappointed and it's going to kill Aunt so-and-so. But this is me. This is who I am. And I won't back down. I won't back down from my true self. So we celebrated last week the birth of the Prince of Peace, right? Hail the heaven-born Prince of Peace, hail the Son, da, da, da. And this week, Jesus is coming with a sword. So it seems like things have escalated quickly. But this shouldn't surprise us, right? This shouldn't surprise us because we also said on Christmas Eve that the path that Jesus carves is right through the middle of the Roman Empire, that he was a perceived threat, and intentionally so. They produced this propaganda. He was a perceived threat to the demigod Caesar, and they created this stark contrast between Jesus and Caesar. Caesar, this power-hungry, petulant, entitled son of privilege and violence, nothing like an American president. Jesus sets up his intention to divide the audience, right? And we said this on Christmas Eve. He's asking the question, Jesus or Caesar? The broken old way or maybe a hopeful new way. And the way that he sets the context is by connecting it to Micah 7. And so when Jesus quotes from Micah 7, he's sort of winking at his hearers that now, when he's talking, that this is a time where people are weeping at the state of affairs over Israel's sin. The corruption of the nation was at a fever pitch, and Israel was in religious collusion with Rome's power. Like imagine a president violently clearing the front of a churchyard for like a sick photo op with a Bible. That kind of collusion, power and religion. And when they say Israel's sin, and you guys nailed this, you know, but they're not talking about like Brad looked at porn or Susie cursed under her breath or Jade cheated on the exam. The sin of the nation is what leads to the state of affairs. We're talking about systemic sin, violence, injustice, oppression, systemic financial abuse and coercion, racism, xenophobia. It's like, are we talking about the Bible or are we talking about January 6th? So first, to be very clear, darn it, neither of the 7-year-old boys is in the room. Jesus is a practitioner of nonviolent resistance, period. So the sword is a symbol. The sword is a metaphor. Very difficult to convince evangelicals of this. Sword is a metaphor. And even the form of literature that Jesus is kind of embodying or performing here is a form called apocalyptic. It's a form that's meant to shed light on something, for example, a deeply broken state of affairs. And the whole genre of apocalyptic literature and speech is saturated in hyperbole. And so it often feels mythical or magical or even violent. The point is this: Jesus' sword doesn't shed blood, it divides his audience. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about shedding blood, he's talking about dividing his audience. His sword doesn't keep the peace. His sword divides the audience between those who will resist change to keep the peace and those who will join his movement of making peace, but it requires changing things, practicing a new way of consciousness. And this is provocative and hyperbolic language specifically aimed at getting attention. It's extreme so that we'll look at it. Because when somebody like Jesus says, I didn't come to bring peace, but to bring a sword, people are like, what? We go, wait a minute, what? And so if I could summarize it, it's like he's saying things are in a bad way all around us. Some of us, this little group, and at this point in Jesus' ministry, his group is not growing, it's shrinking. He's saying there's a group of us, a small group, that have consensus about a way that we can feel more loved and be more loving. We think that this is the way forward, but we expect that people will not agree and that they won't come along. And the best response to that resistance is to just come along anyway. To get this new life that we're all dreaming of, right? And we haven't seen it, but we have faith. This life that we're all dreaming of, to get that, we have to also not keep the old life that we're so comfortable with. He's saying right now, it's not about, in this moment, it's not about bringing everyone along and managing perception and convincing everybody. Right now, he's saying we just need to know who's with us. We just need to know who's with us. And how can we do that except to say very clearly who we are? And so the whole series that we're starting this week, this January, it's going to run through Easter. The hope is to help people clarify and simplify their place here at Collective as their church. To put it very, very simply, that's what we want to do. And at the same time, we want to discover together our place as a church with a credible voice in a world that really, really needs a guide, a world that doesn't know who to look to. And we need a safe place for a powerful experiment in the spiritual shape of the future. And part of that work is that we are always dividing an audience by coming to know more who we are. Because the more we know who we are, the more we also know who we're not. And so then it becomes easier and easier for us to say, this is what we're doing, who's with us? So I just want to sketch out what we're going to do for the next few months and give you guys, so you're like, okay, enough of the vagaries. What are we talking about? You may be wondering, what are these watershed issues, these points of identity in the life of this congregation that are so significant? That not only, and not that we're going to ever turn anyone away, right? That's the thing. No one's ever going to be turned away. But we want to help people know who we are so they can decide whether or not they're with us, whether or not they want to come along. We've been saying for a few years in small groups and behind closed doors, this truth that we know is true, but it feels tough to say because we're like the God is love and love everybody church. But this is still deeply true and okay. We're a church for anyone, but we're not for everyone. Right? And part of the way we know that is we've been around for 10 years and there's like 15 people in the room. We're a church for anyone, but we're not for everyone. We're doing our thing. We're not doing what the other 50 churches in the walking distance of downtown are doing. We find our truest self as a body and in our truest call vocationally as we generate momentum from this clarity, by just coming together and getting very clear and simple about who we are. And so in the series, these are the things that we're going to say, week over week for about the next 12 weeks. We're seeking a non-religious spirituality that works. Who's with us? We're moving forward, guided by Jesus, awakening consciousness. Who's with us? We celebrate queer inclusion, leadership, gifts, and witness in the church. Who's with us? So, for example, here's a part of maturing and growing up. Let's say that your dad or your stepmom or your auntie or your kid doesn't like some of those positions. Us 10 years ago, Ben 10 years ago, would have judged them. They're bad. We need to change them. Look, what? Stop. Right? What did we need to know? What did we need to know? Who's with us? Are you with us? Okay, let's go. We don't have to judge. We don't have to do that. So our relationships to substance is spirituality. Rules are religious. Who's with us? Homosexuality isn't the problem. Our theology is the problem. Who's with us? Sexuality is human. Relationships are also human and messy. Who's with us? Hell is a story that's been used to manipulate and scare us. Who's with us? Spiritual practices and spiritual community can actually help your mental health. Who's with us? And so again, for example, if sex is off limits and you certainly don't talk about it and hell is real and prayer is more powerful than therapy, we're not going to tell you you're bad. We love you, but you're probably not with us. And the truth is you're going to be way happier in any number of the churches around here. And the point of this is we're not passing judgment. We're trying to say very clearly, this is who we are. This is who we are. Who's with us? All right, this is the last chunk. Black Lives Matter to God. Who's with us? Love your neighbor and your enemy with masks and vaccines. Who's with us? God, guns, and Christian nationalism is tired and toxic idolatry. Who's with us? And the point, again, each of these questions is meant to set the table for a frank conversation that is long overdue in the church. Let me be very clear. What we're talking about doing in the next 4 months is not going to happen on social media. Don't get me wrong. Something is going to happen on social media. That's not going to be where we have this conversation. Because the point of the entire series is that these are conversations that have to become safe to have in the church. People are having those conversations online all the time, but we can't guide those, we can't moderate those conversations, we can't facilitate those, we can't bring to bear sacred traditions and rituals and curated conversations, so we're going to do that. The fruit of that is going to be that we divide an audience. When we have those conversations clearly, it will become clear to people who is with us and who's not with us, and that's fine. And maybe you're really progressive, and this sounds crazy, like why are we even talking about this? It's just intuitive, why even mention it? That's awesome, that's great. That's probably a lot of the people that have stuck with us the last few years, that's probably where you are. We also want to acknowledge the world in which we're in, and the audience that we're trying to divide. We're not going to divide the audience in this room, right? You guys are already with us. The point is to bring a bunch of other people in and help them understand who we are. And this audience that we're trying to divide is so real. And I want to just provide a quick example of the contrast. Kenny brought this to me yesterday for a laugh, so hit it.
Things I saw Christians post on Facebook. My daughter just told me today that she's pregnant, due in July. If rapture comes before, will she give birth in heaven? Atheists should spend Christmas in prison. Touch Jesus. No, Santa, I was not a good girl this year. There is no one that doeth good, no, not one. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, including you, you repulsive pagan troll. Pfizer loyalty card. Free pizza at Booster 8. Satan, my children will skip this. Jesus, my children will tithe. Thanks God for my life. Those who had sex before marriage and those with tattoos, y'all know your destination. It's Christmas, not Xmas. How would you feel if your name got taken out of your birthday? It's very offensive. The final variant is called the New World Order. Travel ban? No worries. The border is still wide open. Rah! There is no Mother Nature. There is only Father God. He's making a list. He's checking it twice. You better be found in the Lamb's Book of Life. Jesus Christ is coming to town.
So look, I don't have to value judge anyone for me to just say, we're not doing that. And there are so many people, there are so many churches that call themselves Christian, that use words like Jesus and God and da-da-da-da-da. And that represents more what they're doing. And what we're trying to say is we're not doing that. We're just not doing that. And we can get clear on what we're doing, and then anybody who wants to do what we're doing, come along. We're not in the judgment business. We just want to be clear. This is who we are. This is where we're going. This is almost like satire. It's like a caricature of our counterpoint in the Christian faith. But it's also reality, 2021 Christianity. So part of it is that we want to say clearly who we are because people can't read minds, right? We're not doing that. We're doing this. And at the same time, this is where we're headed. We're going to talk about this next week. When we can actually divide an audience like that with clarity and simplicity around who we authentically are, then we create an opportunity to unite that audience that remains like never before. Right? Think about this. As soon as Jesus says, you've got to love me more than your parents, right? And what else does he have to say? Like, your parents aren't even sure that Black lives matter. What's he done? He's divided them from their parents, and he's united them to a movement based on their convictions. Right? These are punk rock teenagers. And what he knows is that once we know who's with us, it becomes so easy to unite around that, to generate momentum, to pull together people power. I mean, this is what Freddie does for a living. Organize people around a mission. So what is our work to do together? And we'll talk about this throughout the series. If we had to simplify just some of the things that we're about, spiritual practices, right? That's something that sets us apart in a town like DeLand. The fact that we talk about and do spiritual practices is a core part of who we are. Death positivity, that we're not scared of death, we celebrate it. It's a part of life. In general, an umbrella we might call diversity, equity, and inclusion. For us specifically, that's anti-racism and LGBTQ inclusion. Affordable housing, our work with faith, specifically affordable housing. Mental health, our work with the counseling co-op. And then who we've been from the beginning, for the last decade, just generally supporting creators, artists, musicians, entrepreneurs. The Drika is a monastic work that's supposed to support the church, that we would come and work this. And so the whole series of videos that we're going to release, this is going to be a series where there'll be a video for each week that corresponds with a sermon, that corresponds with a question in the whole service. They're aimed to do this, to clarify who we are so that we can just keep asking between now and Easter, who's with us? This is who we are. This is what we're doing. Who's with us? Now, this is tough. That means we can't leave every possibility open. Right? We can't leave every possibility open. To have a life is to choose to do one thing. Right? If we look from today to Easter, and we go from today to Easter, these are all the possibilities of the things that we could do. And they're all really good possibilities, tons of them. And at the end of the day, yeah, not all of them. At the end of the day, what we can do is just one thing. There's one path that gets us between where we are and Easter. And that can be scary to choose a path, right? Because we're the church for everybody's welcome and everybody's story matters. But that's part of the failure at the stage of consciousness that we're at. Take, for example, Occupy Wall Street, right? Were their values on point? Was their critique of capitalism on point? Were the people who were at the top who understood the problems? They were all on point. The problem is they were so committed to this anti-hierarchy that they could never organize. They had all these great ideas and great values, and they couldn't pick a direction. They couldn't pick a leader. They couldn't get somebody to do or say something because there almost develops this fear, like if everything matters, if everybody's equal, and every opinion matters equally, holding your opinion strongly almost feels like an act of violence. And so to be clear about our spiritual community, to be clear about our values, to be clear about racism and human sexuality, about destructive theology and regressive morality, to tell positive stories about death and mental health, to critique nationalism and capitalism, these things will clarify our identity as a community. They will divide our audience. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm not an evangelical preacher. It's okay for that to be true. That's not me. So we can't do that. That's not an option for us anymore, right? Freddie's not a worship band, right? That's not an option anymore. Let's move that off the table. So what's left? What's our thing to do? We can't be everything to everyone. We can't do everything. There's tons of good work to do. We can't do it all. We can do what we can do. Between now and Easter, that's what we can do. We can be who we can be. And I think part of what we're saying is the best thing we can do is to be our truest self. And when we're our truest self, we let that identity be the watershed that divides our audience. It clarifies who's with us enthusiastically. And then from that group, we unite a movement. And we unite a movement around a center of gravity and values. We're going to talk about that next week. That's how you unite an audience, right? What's our center of gravity? What's the constellation of values that kind of orbit that? But dividing an audience has a cost, right? And I can sense that some of you are like, yeah, but what about, some of the old faces, some of the old voices, people in my family, people in my friend group. There's a cost. When you divide an audience, there's a cost, and we absorb that cost. We absorb that loss. We absorb that pain in our body. To choose to do one thing rather than all the other things, that's a loss. We have to lose the potential joy of all those things we might have done. Or maybe you could say this, to choose to be a part of something bigger demands that you sacrifice something smaller. And I think this is like the faith thing, right? Jesus inviting us to see. I don't think it's until you see that you can, to see yourself, to experience yourself as a part of something bigger, as a part of a whole. People say you get this experience when you do mushrooms. Some people say ecstatic spiritual experiences. You go out into the desert, you practice as a mystic, that you can actually see and experience yourself as a part of a oneness, as a part of a whole, as a part of something so much bigger than yourself. And sometimes this revelation it's painful because it's a loss, but it's also freedom. It finally lets you see how desperate you were to settle for so much less. The invitation to this open table is the invitation every week to a paradox. It's a table of loss and of new life. We have to die to the approval of mom and dad and kids. We have to lose the illusion that we can do and be everything to everyone. I can be a perfect father and make my dad proud. We have to lose the illusion that we can be everything to everyone. And this is the part of the sermon that's to me more than anybody. Because this is what I've done for the last 10 years. And it's absolutely destroyed my mental health. It's compromised me vocationally in ways that I could never have imagined. We have to lose the illusion that we can do and be everything to everyone. That with the right language and enough generous theology and enough authentic conversations and enough interfaith dialogues and enough symposiums on civil conversation, that we can bring everyone along. Right? If I just work hard enough, if I just try hard enough, if I study hard enough, if I get the language right, if I find out how to counter that theological defense, maybe if we're kind enough and we create a generous enough community and a generous enough conversation, maybe we can bring everybody along. Maybe. I don't know. I doubt it. I think either way, if you try to do this, you can't be a whole person. You can't be your real self. I haven't been able to be with longings and callings and gifts and power and something to contribute. We have to die to something smaller in order to open ourselves to something bigger. We've got to divide an audience between all the other things that we might do and the single thing that we're doing. And this is the tough question. This is the question of this table, which is less sexy than the rest of the sermon. Who's with us in the sacrifice it takes to be with us? Somebody's in. I'll get to them later. Who's with us and the sacrifice that it takes to be with us? The Eucharist reminds us that God is with us, that Christ is with us. But it also asks that question of the body every week. Are we with us? God is with us. Christ is with us. Are we with us? In a minute, we're going to come to this table and celebrate the Eucharist. I want to offer these words as a lead-in. I swear, I finished this sermon, was it 2 days ago, Friday? And I kind of got done with most of it, the draft. Hey guys, be quiet, we're almost done. And I hit play on the season finale of Yellowstone, season 1, which if you haven't watched it, it's phenomenal. In the last few minutes of the episode was this dialogue, and it's the main character and his daughter. And they're sitting at this massive table, probably like a 12 or 14 person table. And Kevin Costner, the father, he says, I remember when this table was full. And she says, no, you don't. That's not a memory, that's a dream. And he says, what you don't realize is that it doesn't matter how many people are at the table. It matters that there's a place for them to sit. The table is all that matters. And then she says, I'm not doing this for the table. I'm doing this for you. Oh, it's so good. This so perfectly captures the tension between the need for the movement and the centrality of the people. We need a movement to make a place for anyone. We need a movement to make a place for people, and we need people to make a movement. It's this paradox, right? Our deepest allegiance is to one another. Our deepest allegiance is to one another, and we're terribly forgetful creatures. And so we need a table to remind us of this every week. The movement to remind the people that the movement is all about the people. We desperately need you to be with us, and we desperately need the table to gather us. And so we come to receive the good gift of the Eucharist, a meal symbolizing the open table and the humanity of God in each person that comes, the body of Christ. May this table open you in vulnerability to feel more loved and give you the courage to be more loving. This table is set for us and for all people, and no one will ever be turned away. Come, let's share with one another this meal and these words. Bread for the journey, nourishment for the soul. Come when you're ready.
Ask me what I want this year, and I'll try to make this kind and clear. Just a chance and maybe we'll find better days. 'Cause I don't need boxes wrapped in strings or designer love in empty things. Just a chance and maybe we'll find better days. while we're alive. And the one poor child who saved this world, well, there's 10 million more who probably could if we all just stopped and said a prayer for them. So take these words and sing out loud, 'cause everyone is forgiven now. Tonight, the world begins again. I wish everyone would love tonight and somehow stop this endless fight. Just a chance and maybe we'll find a better day. So take these words and sing out loud, 'cause everyone is forgiven now. Tonight, the world begins again. Tonight, the world begins again.
Thank you so much for joining us in person and online this evening. Thank you again for making financial support a part of your practice at collectivegives.com. And make your plan to stay connected with us by going to wearecollectivechurch.com, where you can update your preferences to customize your engagement. If you're willing to share what you found here and make it easier for others to find it also, give us a review on Facebook or Google, or you can share our preview video for the service.
Yeah.
That would be great too.
I think that we did that on Christmas Eve, right? We premiered
Yes.
it? Yeah, so
So-
there's a video on YouTube and on Facebook called, is it Finding My
Yes.
promo. Well, that could have been easier to explain to you guys. We'll take that out in post.
Yeah.
That was a rough joke. Go for it. Yeah, I know. Tough crowd.
So, for benediction this evening, Howard Thurman's The Work of Christmas. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among others, and to make music in the heart.
Let's bring our hands together as a symbol of our intention. First to our foreheads for clarity of thought, and to our lips for clarity of speech, to our hearts for clarity of action, so that in all that we say and do, love would be our first thought, our first word, and our first deed. Grace and peace. I believe that our cleanup instructions are to leave the room as is. So just wipe down the tables, leave it nicer than you found it.